This is a really stylish beanie with lots of texture that is easy to make, and it is a combination of traditional crochet for the brim and Tunisian crochet for the body and crown of the hat. The beanie required around 120 grams of this chunky pure wool and recommends a 7mm crochet hook that I used for making the ribbed brim. Other essentials are a tape measure, wide-eyed needles, a pair of scissors, and very importantly an 8mm Tunisian crochet hook that is at least 14 inches long. And last but not least, a stitch marker. This is the brim of the beanie, and it is created using the back loop only single crochet rib stitch. Directly above it is the beautiful Tunisian crochet alpine stitch giving this lovely texture. And this is the crown of the beanie, and this is Tunisian simple stitch, and you can see these upside down V's that were made during the reduction to create the dome of the beanie. Something that saves time and yarn and looks really nice. The first thing I'm going to do is crochet a ribbed brim using back loop only single crochet. The UK equivalent of single crochet of course is double crochet. To save time, here is a link to the video on how to crochet a ribbed brim. For a brim 3 inches deep I needed to crochet a chain of 9. So this requires a turning chain, turn the work and do single crochets along the chain. This is the last single crochet. I'm now going to chain 1, turn the work, and now single crochet into the back loops along to the edge of the fabric. Because the brim is so stretchy, it will fit either an adult female or an adult male. So I want to create a brim that is around 17 to 18 inches long. That should stretch to a head circumference between 22 and 24 inches. So the fit will be reasonably snug and not too loose. This is the last back loop. Now chain 1 and turn the work. You can start to see the rib appearing. And just continue with the back loop only single crochets until the rib is of the desired length. My top tip is when finishing the brim, make sure that the working yarn is diagonally opposite the long tail at the opposite corner, so that way the tail can be used for joining the seams together starting at the bottom of the beanie and not the top of the brim. And now secure the loop with a stitch marker so that the length of the brim can be measured. This is the brim completed and it is 17 inches long, which is ideal. And you can see that the fabric will stretch nicely to a circumference of 22 to 24 inches. Now it is time to build the rest of the beanie, and I am creating a Tunisian crochet foundation row, and above is a link to the video of how to do a Tunisian crochet foundation row on a ribbed brim. So what I've done is push the Tunisian crochet hook through the loop that I had secured with a stitch marker, and I'm now bringing up loops by pushing the Tunisian crochet hook through the large holes on either side of the ribs. And as you cast on loops working along the top of the brim, the hook will fill up with lots of loops, which is why a hook is required of at least 14 inches long, or a hook with a cable at the end of it. So once you have cast on all the loops, it is now time to count the number of loops on the hook because this will be the number of Tunisian crochet stitches, and it may be necessary to adjust it slightly by adding or losing a loop. And for the alpine stitch, an even number of stitches is required. And I have counted 60 loops on the hook, so I can now continue with the return pass. So chain 1 and mark the space for the last stitch of the forward pass. And now yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, etc. until there is just 1 loop left on the hook. And this is a normal Tunisian crochet return pass. The stitch I'm going to use for this beanie is going to be the Tunisian Crochet Alpine stitch. So I will need a row of Tunisian simple stitch that I'm doing now. So I'm now completing the forward pass of the Tunisian simple stitch. This is the last stitch into the marked space, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now I'm going to chain 1 and mark the space for the end of the next forward pass. And now for a normal Tunisian crochet return pass, yarning over, pulling through 2 loops, etc. until there is 1 loop left on the hook. And then the next forward pass will be the start of the Tunisian Crochet Alpine stitch. And this is alternate Tunisian double crochets and Tunisian crochet simple stitches. The Tunisian crochet simple stitches go behind alternate vertical bars of the top row, and the double crochets go into alternate vertical bars on the row below. So for the double crochet, yarn over, push the hook behind the second vertical bar on the row below, yarn over, pull through 1 loop, then yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and that is the first double crochet. Now for the Tunisian simple stitch into the next stitch on the top row, followed by a Tunisian double crochet into the next stitch on the row below. Next is a Tunisian simple stitch, and keep alternating simple stitches and double crochets until the end of the row. The last stitch is into the marked space, yarn over, pull up a loop, and now chain 1, mark the space for the end of the next forward pass, and do a normal Tunisian crochet return pass. And when there is 1 loop left on the hook, it is time to start the second row of the alpine stitch. The next forward pass of the alpine stitch is opposite to the underlying forward pass. So the first stitch is going to be a simple stitch into the second vertical bar on the top row, and the next stitch is going to be a Tunisian double crochet into the next stitch on the row underneath. So what gives the alpine stitch its lovely texture is that each Tunisian simple stitch is next to a Tunisian double crochet on either side and above and below. Stitch is a double crochet and above it will be a simple stitch. This beanie is going to be around 10 inches from the edge of the brim to the top of the crown. So I'm going to stop doing the rows of alpine stitch when the width is 5 inches. That will give me 5 inches to create the dome with Tunisian simple stitch. We're now completing the 6th row of Tunisian Alpine stitch. This is the last stitch into the marked space. Another top tip, check the stitch count at the end of each row just to make sure that stitches are not being gained or lost. So this is the project so far, and it is 5 inches wide, which is perfect. So now I'm going to just do a normal Tunisian crochet return pass and then start doing the reduction with the Tunisian crochet simple stitch. So when there is one loop left on the hook, it is time to do the Tunisian simple stitch, and for this, after 6 Tunisian simple stitches, I'm going to do 2 together and repeat every 6 stitches. So 1 second simple stitch, 3rd simple stitch, 4th simple stitch, 5th simple stitch, 6th simple stitch. Now I'm going to push the crochet hook under the next 2 vertical bars, yarn over and pull up a loop, and now I have reduced the stitch count by 1. Now for 6 simple stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now 2 together. Yarn over and pull up a loop. So I've reduced another stitch, and just carry on with 2 together after every 6 stitches until the end of the row. And now for a normal Tunisian crochet return pass until there is 1 loop left on the hook. The next forward pass is 1 Tunisian simple stitch into each stitch with no reductions. The next forward pass is going to have a reduction after every 5 Tunisian simple stitches. So I've done, that's 4, 5, now 2 together, yarn over, pull up a loop, so we've reduced that by 1, now 5 simple stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now 2 together. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and keep going until the end of the row, reducing after every 5 stitches. The next row is 1 Tunisian simple stitch into each stitch with no reductions. The next forward pass is another reduction, this time doing 4 simple stitches, then 2 together. So 1 is on the hook, 2, 3, 4, now 2 together, so this has reduced the stitch count by 1, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 2 together, etc. until the end of the row. The next forward pass is 1 Tunisian simple stitch into each stitch with no reductions. The next forward pass is 3 Tunisian simple stitches, then 2 together, and repeat this till the end of the row. Stitch number 1 is on the hook, here's number 2, third simple stitch, and now 2 together. Now 1 simple stitch, second simple stitch, third simple stitch, and 2 together. The next forward pass is 1 simple stitch into each stitch with no reductions. The next forward pass is 2 simple stitches, then 2 together. First stitch is on the hook, so this is the second stitch, and now 2 together. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Now 1 simple stitch, next simple stitch, then 2 together, and continue until the end of the row. The next row will be 1 simple stitch, then 2 together. So the stitch on the hook is the first stitch, now 2 together. Yarn over, pull up a loop, 1 simple stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, now 2 together, etc. until the end of the row. Next forward pass is the final reduction, and this is composed of 2 together all the way along. So first stitch is on the hook, push the hook through the second stitch, now yarn over, pull up a loop, and continue with 2 together all along the row. Now is the final Tunisian crochet return pass for this beanie, and for this forward pass we're just going to do slip stitches to neaten up the top of the beanie so it can be nicely cinched and closed off. So now we're going to slip stitch along the top of the beanie, so push the hook behind the next vertical bar, yarn over and pull through both loops, leaving one loop on the hook. Now insert the hook behind the next vertical bar, yarn over, pull through both loops, leaving one loop on the hook, and do the same to each stitch all along the row, leaving just one loop on the hook after pulling through both loops. As always, I still like to mark the end of the row so I can see where the top of the beanie finishes. And you can see how neat the slip stitch has made the top of the hat, perfect for cinching. I'm going to cut the yarn, leaving a good long tail so that I'll have more than enough to sew the edges of the beanie together and cinch the top. You can see how the gradual reduction with the simple stitches has resulted in a very nice looking dome for the crown of the beanie. Joining the edges of the beanie together is a bit of trial and error really. What I'm going to do for this one is just a simple whip stitch. I'm going to turn the fabric inside out and whip stitch the edges together. Of course, slip stitch or mattress stitch are two alternative methods. And this is the length of the beanie from top to bottom, and it is exactly 10 inches. That is perfect. I've turned the beanie inside out. I'm just joining the edges of the brim of the beanie together using the tail of yarn I left when making the brim, and I'm just going to join the edges of the brim and the rest of the beanie using a simple whip stitch. And this is what the seam looks like. It looks okay in my opinion. These are the last few stitches, and all that remains now is to cinch the top of the beanie to close the small hole. Now I'm just going to thread the yarn in and out of the stitches around the hole so I can draw the hole closed rather like the drawstring of a bag. Finally put a few stitches across the top of the hole to close it off completely. And then just weave in the loose ends on the inside of the beanie. Then the job is complete. Here it is, the Tunisian Crochet Alpine Stitch Beanie.